Welcome to Scarlet Tavern. Grab a drink, take a seat, and let's begin. Today, we're cracking open the most infamous CIA experiment that's got more twists than a pretzel factory. Operation MK Ultra. Yep, we're talking mind control, secret government labs, and more LSD than you'd find at a 60s music festival. So buckle up because we're about to take a psychedelic journey into the weirdest science project the CIA ever concocted. Trust me, you won't need a tinfoil hat for this one, but a sense of humor. Highly recommended. This is Scarlet Tavern. Alright. Don't have our normal glasses, so...
It's a coffee day, folks.
Yeah, so...
that is not spiked.
Alright.
Are you sure?
Very.
No.
I spiked them.
Oh, did you spike mine? Did you spike mine with LSD?
I did.
Oh,
Is that why? Get into the character.
Yeah.
Mine was a placebo, right?
No.
Damn.
Yours actually has LSD.
So is that why I see little spiky-haired elves climb up the walls?
Yeah.
That explains it.
Is that why I see color and taste color?
Yes. All right. So, Project Artichoke, also referred to as Operation Artichoke, was spearheaded by the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence. This project delved deeper into advanced interrogation techniques that were initially explored under the CIA's earlier initiative, Project Bluebird. Artichoke aimed to develop offensive mind control methods and conducted experiments to induce amnesia and highly suggestible states in its subjects. The project notably utilized hypnosis, forced morphine dependency, and subsequent withdrawal, along with other drugs, chemicals, and methodologies. The overarching goal of Project Artichoke was chillingly articulated in a CIA memo from January 1952. Ben read this when it came out. Questioning whether it was possible to manipulate an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will, and even against fundamental laws of nature such as self-preservation. A significant experiment within the program explored the feasibility of creating a Manchurian candidate, a concept later popularized by Richard Condon's 1959 novel. In Condon's story, an American soldier is hypnotically compelled by communist forces to execute assassinations upon returning home. Great book, great movie. The book's good too.
Yes, I actually have not read the book.
Great. The movie's amazing. I love
Never
it.
read it, never seen it.
It's very good.
There's actually two Manchurian Candidate movies. There's the original one with Frank Sinatra, actually. Yep. One of his few acting roles where it turns out old Blue Eyes could act.
Yeah.
And the other one, which is my favorite, was with Denzel.
Yeah.
Love that one.
But read the book. It's very good.
Yes.
Echoing this narrative, a CIA report from January 1954, you remember when this came out, pondered, can an individual of redacted descent be made to perform an act of attempted assassination involuntarily under the influence of artichoke? This line of inquiry indicates the extent of the agency's interest in using mind control for covert operations, underscoring the profound ethical and moral questions such projects raised about the manipulation of human beings. Now, this redaction, we don't know what it is. It's still redacted. My personal opinion is that it is possibly Russian or something like that, because we're at Cold War. We're getting out of World War II, Cold War era, so
could be Chinese, Korean,
exactly. Anything that was involved Cold War era around this time, Japanese.
I mean,
we don't know.
From a intelligence point of view, this actually is a very attractive thing, because imagine if you could, as an intelligence agency, somehow manipulate an agent, even in a friendly nation. Say there was a friendly government suddenly turned on the United States. A leader was a driving force in it. What if someone from his cabinet was compelled to kill him?
Well, just also, the redaction could also be Cuban, because this is where you have Cuban Missile Crisis. You have obviously this is before Castro. This would have been
This
in 54.
would have been probably the last years of, I forget his name, but Batista. That was the General Batista
before Castro took over. But that could have been another thing because Cuban Missile Crisis, dealing with all of that. So we don't know. But yes, this is a huge thing. It's why we were looking into it, because imagine if we could have taken somebody of Cuban descent, put them under our mind control, sent them into Cuba to prevent the Cuban Missile Crisis or prevent the Cold War in Russia. Imagine if we had this in World War II. What could have been prevented in infiltrating the Nazis, infiltrating all there's so much to it, and that's why it was so wanted.
Well,
and then they just,
and as we will see going on,
they took it to the extreme,
and always does. This actually, many of this was not started by the CIA, as we're about to find out here.
Under the secretive alias Project Artichoke, the CIA conducted both domestic and international experiments. These experiments employed methods such as LSD administration, hypnosis, and extended isolation of psychologically pressure subjects during interrogations. Initially, substances like cocaine, marijuana, heroin, peyote, and mescaline were tested. However, as the project evolved, LSD emerged as the preferred substance due to its potent effects. Unfortunately, many subjects departed the program with only hazy recollections of their involvement, a side effect of the drug-induced amnesia. The project also explored the use of biological agents, including dengue fever and other viruses, not necessarily to kill, but to incapacitate targets temporarily or permanently. An uncovered memo from the project notes the interest in viruses that could serve as non-lethal incapacitating agents. Debates within the CIA about leadership of the project concluded with the appointment of Paul F. Gaynor, former U.S. Army Brigadier General, to head the operations. The agency aimed to exert influence over what it considered vulnerable or less sophisticated societal groups, including potential agents, defectors, prisoners of war, and others. Project Artichoke's global operations spanned across Europe, Japan, Southeast Asia, and the Philippines, employing teams that conducted experimental activities on unwitting subjects from various nationalities.
What is peyote, for those that don't know? So
peyote is the Native American, for lack of a better term, it's a Native American marijuana. It's a lot stronger. That is, if you've ever heard of a Native American spirit walk, that peyote is what they take to put themselves in the spirit walk. If anybody has ever done weed, it's weed with another drug mixed in, basically. So you're going to get a lot more high. You do have hallucinations, stuff like that. I would love to try peyote once.
I think in this group,
I'm Native American. It's allowed.
Kayde is the only one that could legally do it.
Yeah. But yeah, so peyote, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, again, Native Americans have used it as far back as we can remember, and it's a natural drug like marijuana is. So it does not last as long as LSD. LSD lasts a lot longer, which is why they changed from peyote to LSD. So let's talk about Paul Francis Gaynor. Paul Francis Gaynor, born on June 27, 1914 in Scranton, Pennsylvania, shout out to Dunder Mifflin, was the son of James Gaynor, who owned a local construction business. Paul pursued higher education first at the University of Scranton, then at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, focusing on business studies. Post-graduation, Gaynor relocated to Dunmore and began working with the Pennsylvania Coal Company. His life took a significant turn in 1941 when he enlisted in the 28th Infantry Division of the Pennsylvania National Guard and subsequently entered active duty in 1943. His military career during World War II was notable, including participation in the D-Day landings and the liberation of Paris. In a courageous display during the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944, then Captain Gaynor killed 8 German soldiers, playing a critical role in his company's maneuvers and earning the Distinguished Service Cross for his bravery. So this man is a war hero. It's a World War II war hero.
Interesting choice for the to head up this project,
Yeah.
honestly.
Transitioning to a career in intelligence, Gaynor joined the newly established CIA in 1947. By 1951, he was leading the research staff at the CIA's Office of Security, which I believe does not exist anymore. They've kind of molded into.
I'm sure over the years there's probably offices and departments there that don't exist anymore.
Office of Security, I think, molded into a different branch. During his tenure, he initiated extensive background checks targeting homosexual employees within the federal government, which led to controversies, including the tragic case of John C. Montgomery, a State Department employee whose suicide was linked to this investigation.
Tried looking up this incident, what it is. I can't find very much.
Is it one of those suicides?
I believe.
No, it was a real suicide.
No, okay.
This man was, I believe, from very little I can tell, the man was just accused of being a homosexual, which back then was illegal and certainly very much
and then
around
working for the quote unquote State Department.
I think he did work for the State Department.
We don't know. We would never know, even after his death, if he really worked for the State Department or if it was the CIA cover State Department. But the harassment would have he caused him to kill himself. It wasn't a
he tripped down going down the street or something like that.
It wasn't an Epstein killed himself kind of thing, because Epstein didn't kill himself.
So
no, he didn't.
This would
please, nobody, CIA and all the alphabet soup, do not come after us.
Don't make me kill myself.
Yeah. No, so I do believe what I understood this was because he was a State Department employee, because the Office of the Security of the CIA, I believe these are the guys who were at the time, their job was to kind of snuff out potential security links and being homosexuality, unfortunately, being not only a cultural taboo in the United States, it was also illegal. So if John C. Montgomery was in fact homosexual, it would have actually put him at risk to being turned as a double agent by foreign agents. So unfortunately for him, I don't believe he was obviously never a security risk. So he
was a department aide.
Yeah.
I just found the news article.
Oh, okay.
Of him.
I couldn't find it.
January 26, 1953.
Okay.
That's why if you can never find anything, if you can't find it, I can't find it, we ask Kayde, because Kayde will be able to find it.
2 seconds. He was 41 years old.
Yeah. So.
But he hung himself, according to this article. He was found hanged. Let's see. So, from what I'm reading, he was let's see, in charge of Finnish affairs.
Which would have been Finland was a big hotspot in the Cold War because it shares the longest European border with Russia. It used to be part of Russia, actually.
So I actually found a actual CIA record.
Oh.
Yeah, so it says he was fully clothed except for a coat. Police found a note. But
no release of the contents of the note.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I found an actual CIA.
Oh.
So I can find anything. So if you're hiding, I will find you. But
so under my bed is probably not the best place.
No. So despite facing criticism from CIA Director Alan Dulles for his political affiliations and support of figures with controversial backgrounds, Gaynor's career advanced. In 1951, CIA Director Walter Bedell Smith appointed... Bedell.
No, it's actually... I know this person used to be a general in World War II. It's actually pronounced Beetle. They called him Beetle.
It's spelled Bedell. So, it's spelled Bedell. Mm-hmm. In the South, we say Bedell. appointed him to oversee Project Artichoke. The project aimed to explore the use of drugs for mind control, testing whether subjects could be manipulated to carry out assassinations involuntarily. Gaynor, who valued human experimentation for scientific potential, advocated for aggressive expansion of the program, emphasizing the importance of securing human subjects for ongoing experiments. Now, Project Chatter. Project Chatter was a covert United States Navy initiative that commenced in the fall of 1947, directed by Dr. Charles Savage, at the behest of Dr. Theodore Benzinger. I know.
Aaron.
You just like to correct people.
Yes, you really do.
This program was based at the Naval Medical Research Institute in Bethesda, Maryland, and ran until shortly after the conclusion of the Korean War in 1953. The primary aim of Project Chatter was to identify and test both synthetic and natural substances that could be used effectively in interrogation scenarios and for the recruitment of agents. Project extensively investigated the properties and effects of various drugs, including anabazine, an alkaloid, scopolamine, and mescaline, conducting laboratory experiments on both animal and human subjects. Focus was on determining which substances could be employed to manipulate or control subjects during interrogations, thereby aiding in intelligence gathering and operative recruitment. Now, for those that don't know, anabazine is the same alkaloid found in tree tobacco.
Okay.
So it's a close relative to the common tobacco plant, but basically it's the isomers in it, the structure is similar to nicotine. So they were basically testing nicotine, a version of nicotine. Then scopolamine is so scopolamine, also known as the devil's breath, is a drug that is used to treat motion sickness, post-operative nausea, and vomiting. We still use it today. It's also used before surgery to decrease saliva.
I believe I was given that before
most people are.
I had my back surgery.
Scopolamine is still used. And then I know we mentioned it before, and I never explained what it is, but mescaline is...
Isn't that just another version of peyote or same kind of
family? It is a naturally occurring psychedelic. It's a proto-alkaloid. But yeah, it's a hallucinogenic that is comparable to LSD. But it only lasts for 6 hours. So where LSD lasts a lot longer. So Project Chatter marked one of the early forays into the realm of chemical interrogation techniques by the U.S. military, reflecting the broader Cold War era interest in mind control and behavioral modification as tools for both defensive and offensive operations. Program was discontinued in 1953 following changing priorities in the shifting geopolitical landscape post-Korean War. Now, let's talk about the Nazi doctor. Theodore Benzinger, a notable figure in medical and physiological research, began his academic journey in the universities of Tübingen, Munich, and Berlin, focusing on medicine and the natural sciences. He completed his education with a PhD at Med.
What does that mean, that at Med? Is it it's medical?
Yep. Oh. It just means PhD in medicine.
Oh.
Because you can have a PhD in multiple things.
That's right.
So PhD at Med is just the Latin way of saying in medicine.
I figured it was. I just wasn't sure.
Didn't you take Latin in school?
Yeah, not officially. I just picked it up.
This Latin's a little bit different. When you get to like medical Latin, it's a little bit. It's not as. It's more proper.
Yeah, it's different than the Catholic
Church Latin. Yes. Basically, that's kind of what I learned.
Yeah. So Benzinger's career trajectory took a controversial turn when he joined the NSDAP and SA in 1933 and endorsed Bekentenis I tried this before. Bekenntnis der deutschen Professoren zu Adolf Hitler, which basically means the professors that support Adolf Hitler.
Also, for our listeners, the SA, this is the forerunner to the SS. So
correct.
this is the S. When we say SA,
this is pre-SS.
Pre-SS. This is Benzinger was probably one of the earliest supporters of Adolf Hitler and the National Socialists.
In 1934, he worked under Hermann Rhein at the Physiological Institute of the University of Göttingen. By 1938, he completed his habilitation at the same university, focusing on respiratory and gas metabolism studies, particularly under conditions of oxygen deprivation and vacuum, utilizing continuous direct recording methods. Where is that going to play out?
So SA, this is what I pulled up, is, I'm not going to say the German because I'm going to butcher the German.
Pam is the only one here who has not been to Germany.
No, and the funny thing is I am ancestry from Germany. Storm Division or Stormtroopers?
This is where when you hear modern people, activists, anti-police activists refer to police as stormtroopers, they are referencing these guys.
They're also called the brown shirts.
Yes.
Because of their uniforms.
These were the guys also that would go to the other politicians' rallies and beat up other non-Nazis, basically.
And it's funny because we hear, I don't know if you guys know who else names their people after their uniform color. Mussolini.
Oh, the black
Mussolini's
shirts.
Black shirts. Because their uniforms were black.
Actually, I believe the Brits, even the British Fascist League, had their own. They were called the Silver Shirts.
Yeah. So.
Well, if you think about it, Britain had it beforehand in the Revolution, the Redcoats.
Oh, that's
it's different, but
that has nothing to compare. That's totally different thing.
But yeah, so you want to try the German pronunciation?
Nope.
So throughout World War II, Benzinger's research expanded into areas critical for military applications such as decompression, high altitude physiology, and he notably identified air embolisms as a cause of death in explosions. He also pioneered the Aeromedical Institute of the Reichsland Test Center in 1940, which was directly affiliated with the Ministry of Aviation. His work covered a wide range of physiological concerns, including thermal regulation and desalination research.
So with air embolism, I thought that was putting an air directly into a vein.
No. So he doesn't mean, like, physical embolisms. He's talking about, like, high-altitude explosions.
Oh, okay.
And embolism in the physical air causing death and explosions. And then, so...
Desalination is basically turning salt water into regular drinking water.
Yeah, so he was able to literally take seawater, which is great. It is genius because it's giving you an endless supply of clean water to drink. Yeah. He's taking salt water, desalinizing it, and turning it into normal water that can be drank without dehydrating you, because obviously you can drink salt water, but it's going to dehydrate you. And then obviously thermal regulation is exactly what it sounds like. So during the war, Benzinger's activities also extended to participating in discussions about medical issues and extreme conditions, evidenced by his involvement in the Winter Death Conference in Nuremberg in 1942, which controversially referenced the supercooling experiments conducted at Dachau.
So the Winter Death Conference is also, for anybody who is not a World War II aficionado, this is the one of these, I can't ever pronounce it, conference. This is a conference where many middle ranking to some high ranking Nazi officials came and basically formulated the final solution to the Jewish question. This conference is where they decided we're going to systematically kill the Jews, the communists, the homosexuals, people of mental disabilities, Roma gypsies, Slavs, anybody that the Germans deemed inferior. they determined this is how we're going to do it and how we're going to do it.
Yeah. So these experiments were conducted on behalf of the Luftwaffe in the Dachau concentration camp from August 1942, in which prisoners were deliberately chilled by immersing prisoners in tanks of ice water to simulate hypothermia, then reheated using different methods. His wartime contributions earned him the title of Obermedizinalrat, and membership in the German Academy for Aviation Research, where he published extensively.
What does that mean?
So it literally is... I'm gonna double check, but I believe it's an officer title.
Basically, he's the head medical officer, I believe.
It literally translates into senior medical officer.
Yeah.
So
Uber senior, basically.
Yeah, and medicine is medicine.
Yeah.
Now, and then rat for officers.
I mean, they are rats, so...
These ones, yeah. After World War II, Benzinger was detained in September 1946 and listed as a defendant in the doctor's trial, which we'll get to the doctor's trial when we do World War II stuff, though he was released a few months later without trial. His scientific expertise, particularly in aviation medicine, made him a candidate for Operation Paperclip, which we will get to later, leading to his relocation to the United States in 1947. There, he served as the director of Bioenergetic Institute of the Naval Medical Research Institute in Bethesda until 1970, and later at the National Institute of Standards and Technology in Gaithersburg. During his tenure in the U.S., he contributed to the development of the Planck-Benzinger equation, modifying the second law of thermodynamics. And we'll let you nerds think about thermodynamics. So, beyond his research, Benzinger was also an inventor holding several patents. His most commercially successful invention was the ear thermometer, patented in 1964, which became a fundamental tool in medical diagnostics still to this day. You are using a Nazi invention.
Yep.
So
hence why I will probably never be using an ear thermometer again.
So right now, that is some of some of the players and the early precursor projects that would make MK Ultra. These things laid the groundwork, and what we're going to get down to is the what we call the dark players of the CIA. These men will had their hands in Artichoke and Chatter, and they would have in other independent research projects that would lay the foundation and the framework for MK Ultra. And as we're going to see, we're seeing a bit of a pattern here on who actually started all this.
Yeah. So, Kurt Friedrich Plautner, born on October 19th, 1905 in Hermsdorf, was a member of the Nazi Party and an SS physician who ascended to the rank of Sturmbannführer, which literally means
major, right?
Assault unit leader, but it is the equivalent of major in our... Yes. But Sturmbannführer. During World War II, Plautner was deeply involved in morally reprehensible human experimentation on Jews and Soviet prisoners of war at Dachau concentration camp. His work included participating in malaria experiments led by Klaus Schilling, which often involved administering lethal doses of drugs.
Klaus Schilling was later hanged after Nuremberg.
Yes, which when we're doing World War II, we'll talk about the doctor's trials, all of that.
And Nuremberg and stuff.
So in 1944, he succeeded Sigmund Roscher as head of Department R on the Anerbe project, which he continued his experimental work on living subjects, including administering hallucinogen mescaline to Jews and Russian prisoners, watching them display schizophrenic behavior as part of the Nazis' quest for an effective truth serum. Post-war, Plautner's controversial scientific contributions caught the attention of Boris Posh, an American intelligence officer. In 1945, under the scrutiny of American intelligence, which was then forming the foundations of what would become Project Bluebird and later MK Ultra, Plautner was recruited for his expertise in interrogation techniques. His tenure in the U.S., though brief, left a lasting impact, influencing later CIA research. By early 1950s, Plautner had assumed the alias Schmidt and relocated to Schleswig-Holstein. Despite French efforts to prosecute him in 1946, the U.S. authorities claimed he was unlocatable, suggesting Soviet protection, which was not the case. By 1952, he quietly resumed his real identity and was appointed at the University of Freiburg in West Germany, where he became an associate professor in 1954. His reintegration into civilian life and academia, despite his wartime activities, highlights the complex and often controversial aftermath of intelligence and scientific networks in post-war era.
Yeah, denazification was a nice little euphemism they used back then, but in reality, it didn't really work out the way they wanted. Because, hey, a guy who experimented on living people in the camps was allowed to become a professor in West Germany.
Yeah. Kurt Blom, a figure entangled in both scientific advancements and wartime atrocities, had a multifaceted career marked by both his medical expertise and his involvement in Nazi Germany's darker projects. Born in Hermsdorf, we see a connection here.
Yeah.
Hermsdorf is where all the shitheads were born.
I bet you any money these guys were friends.
I bet you Hermsdorf are still shitheads.
Probably.
Our listeners in Germany, just let us know. Born in Hermsdorf on October 19, 1905, he grew up in Dortmund and completed his schooling there before studying medicine. His early life was punctuated by military service during World War I and involvement in the tumultuous post-war period, including participation in the Freikorps, Marine Brigade, Erhardt, and the Kapp Putsch, where he was wounded. Blom's alignment with the Nazi Party in 1922 foreshadowed his later role as a director of the Nazi Biological Warfare Program. Officially titled as Plenipotentiary for Cancer Research, his work went beyond cancer to explore the military use of carcinogens and viruses. Now, a plenipotentiary, do you know what that is?
No.
So a plenipotentiary basically is someone that is in charge of something and the government gives them everything. They give them free reign and free money to do whatever they want. So basically Germany said, or the Nazis said, here you go, you are in charge of cancer research, do whatever you want, take whatever money you want, you have no limitations. Great in theory for cancer research, but his research received strong backing from prominent Nazi figures like Heinrich Himmler and Hermann Göring, which we will talk about when we do Nuremberg and all of that.
The Psycho and the Fat Man.
Yeah, reflecting the regime's interest in offensive biological warfare against the Allies. During his tenure, he oversaw the development of pathogens like plague, cholera, and anthrax at the Central Cancer Institute at the University of Posen, which served as a facade for biological weapon production. The facility was heavily guarded and structured to prevent any accidental release of biological agents. So, like I said...
Anthrax still scares the shit out of me.
So, it should, because anthrax can survive for millennia.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
It can survive inert in the ground. Then, when it is exposed to air, it is then toxic again. They have been testing... obviously, we had the big anthrax scare in the 90s, right?
2000s.
Early 2000s.
Yeah, it was just after 9/11.
Well, it's all the same. 90s goes till like 2006. We know that. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But so we've been testing that, and they have tested that anthrax can survive forever, potentially. But
that's not scary at all.
So, like I said, in theory, plenipotentiary is great for cancer research.
Yes.
Like if the U.S. had done it, it'd be great. Plenipotentiary here. Take it. Do whatever you need to. Let's figure out this cancer thing. Obviously, that will never happen because big pharma.
Yeah.
But here, it was being used as a cover for biological warfare, which luckily they weren't dropping cholera and anthrax on us during World War II.
Because that would have been very, very bad.
It could have changed everything.
Well, it's kind of hard for Nazi Germany to develop like all these biological, chemical, and nuclear weapons when you chase off the most brilliant scientists of your day out of your country, and you're left with these psychos.
Yeah. So, I mean, you gotta think that like the reason we created the atom bomb, which is probably one of the largest mistakes in scientific history.
Yep.
Is I as a nuclear expert, as somebody who guarded nuclear weapons, I think they should all be destroyed.
I agree.
Now I'm not a nuclear expert in the fact of I know how to build a nuke or know exactly how it works, all of that, but I've been around more nuclear weapons than anybody around here.
Oh,
sure. And I've seen them. I've handled pieces of nukes. I have done all of that. So I believe that the atom bomb was the worst thing that was ever created by America.
I would have used it to end Japan, and then I would have destroyed all the research.
So what's funny is we got that from German scientists, where
because it was before it was the race of us against Russia. It was the race against Germany.
In retrospect, Oppenheimer determined actually, not completely early on, but I'd say over the halfway mark, he realized that Germany was never going to do it simply because Hitler had actually told to Einstein himself, this is Jewish science. That's how he regarded quantum physics, nuclear physics. So Hitler was never going to really seriously pursue the atomic bomb simply because, Jews made it. So I don't want it.
Precursor to, I can't remember, I think it was a precursor to the CIA.
OSS
actually bombed a heavy water plant.
Actually, it was the Norwegian resistance who had done that.
Do you guys know who was the person that was essential for creating the atomic bomb?
Oppenheimer.
It's a female.
No.
Oppenheimer is nothing compared to this woman.
Female.
I didn't hear that part.
Oppenheimer would not be famous if it was not for this woman. Her name is Lisa Meitner. Lisa Meitner she's known as the mother of the atomic bomb. She is the first person to ever coin the term nuclear fission. Not nuclear fusion, nuclear fission. Two different things. Oh, yeah. She discovered protactinium, which is what goes on to create nuclear fission. So she was actually the first female physics professor in Germany.
Oh.
Without Lisa Meitner, none of that would have been able to happen. So she is the first one to coin the term nuclear fission on a scientific paper. So Oppenheimer would have nothing to do with anything if it was not for Lisa Meitner. Unfortunately, she doesn't get the credit she deserves. No. Because she's a woman.
Girl power for that, but unfortunately it led to some very bad consequences.
And technically, Oppenheimer is not the father of fission either. That's Otto Hahn. Otto Hahn won a Nobel Prize in chemistry for his fission. But that's me getting into my nerdy rants. So, Blom's expertise did not go unnoticed post-war. Arrested in 1945, he was later involved in Operation Paperclip, an initiative by the U.S. government to recruit scientists for Nazi Germany for their knowledge and skills. Again, we will get into all that when we do Project Paperclip on its own. His involvement with the Americans, particularly in projects like MKUltra, demonstrated the complex ethical landscapes navigated during the Cold War. Despite the serious nature of his wartime activities, Blom was acquitted at the Nuremberg doctor's trial and subsequently returned to medical practice and even engaged in politics as a member of the German Party. Blom's work also included collaborations with Japanese biological warfare programs, further complicating his scientific legacy. He is known for his research into using insects as vectors for biological warfare, experimenting with malaria and typhus transmissions via mosquitoes and lice, which he tested on prisoners at concentration camps like Dachau and Buchenwald. So basically, so mosquitoes already carried malaria.
Yeah.
He was just amplifying it and using it to basically trying to use the mosquitoes as a weapon.
Or at the very least, for them to develop a more potent strain of malaria.
And same thing with typhus and lice. So lice were known to carry typhus.
Lice,
and
I will not ever fuck with.
And you got to think in places like a concentration camp where it's enclosed spaces, it's nasty, it's gritty.
It was a breeding ground for lice and fleas and everything,
and mosquitoes, because you're getting
standing water,
you're all of this stuff because we need to go to the Holocaust Museum. But Kurt Blohm died in Dortmund in 1969. Leaving behind a controversial legacy characterized by his scientific achievements and grave ethical breaches. His career reflects the troubling intersections of science and ideology, where the pursuit of knowledge was often marred by profound human rights abuses.
Now,
with the Holocaust Museum, I've been there. I've been to the one in D.C. It is
go to
extremely humbling.
I want to go to the actual one
in D.C., right?
No, like they have one in Germany.
Oh, well, they have many of the camps that you can visit.
I want to go do all of that.
That would be hard.
Yeah, the whole time I was in Germany, it's not that looking back, I see it as a mistake not going, but to me at the time, as much as I loved history, I wasn't there.
Young.
Well, yeah, I wasn't there for that, and I was,
Now, as you get older, you're like, oh, I probably should have done that.
Yeah. So now we're going to be getting into a very, unfortunately, not as well known part of World War II, but this
guy's a piece of shit.
And this person also, I chose this person because he not only headed this unit, but he also kind of represents another aspect of the CIA's experiments that would be another facet of MK Ultra and another CIA experiment projects. This is the guy who headed Unit 731.
So,
and this scares me way more than the Nazi projects.
I want to apologize to our friends in Japan. Ben and I speak enough German to get by and to be able to pronounce stuff. None of us speak Japanese.
Yeah.
So we apologize if we mispronounce anything. We don't mean anything by it. Yeah. And if you were listening to us in Japan, that's awesome.
Yes, it would.
That you can understand our English. Because it's horrible. So, Shiro Ishii, born in Shibayama, Chiba Prefecture, Japan on June 25th, 1892, rose from a provincial upbringing to become a central figure in some of the most notorious war crimes of the 20th century. The son of Katsuya Ishii, a wealthy landowner and sake maker, Ishii grew up in an environment where his family held significant feudal influence over the local area. Ishii's education trajectory reflected a sharp intellect and ambitious nature. After excelling at Chiba Middle School and the 4th Higher School, he enrolled in the Faculty of Medicine at Kyoto Imperial University in 1916, which at the time is one of the greatest universities in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Known for his photographic memory, Ishii was both admired and resented for his intellectual prowess and abrasive personality. His ability to recite complex texts after single reading and his aggressive demeanor marked his early academic and social interactions.
So he was probably a genius.
He was.
Honestly, the first thing I thought
This is the Japanese Sheldon.
Yeah, Japanese Sheldon Cooper.
Yeah. Unfortunately, when you have an intellect like this, back then IQ tests weren't a thing, so we don't know. But if you have an intellect like this, typically somebody with a photographic memory has a high intellect.
Mm-hmm.
Your social interaction goes down. You don't know how to process.
The Big Bang Theory. We're actually now watching Scorpion.
Yeah.
Stuff like that with the high intellect people.
So, and unfortunately, antisocial behavior tends to be prevalent nowadays. It's you can mitigate it with therapy and just how to better interact with people like this. Him coming from a prominent family, he was just and the Japanese just put a higher expectation on their children.
Still
to this day, even more so him being the son of basically a lord.
Yeah.
I don't know much about Japanese feudal system, but if he's that, then he is a daimyo. His father would have probably been the daimyo, possibly. If I'm thinking right. That's the only title I know in Japanese feudal society. But yeah, so as we can see, it probably had an impact on him.
So in 1920, upon graduating, Ishii married the daughter of the university's president, which likely aided his swift commissioning as a military surgeon in the Imperial Japanese Army in 1921. Nice people, that Imperial Japanese Army.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice people. His military career was distinguished by his return to Kyoto Imperial University for postgraduate studies, where he cultivated bacteria as pets, a practice that underscored his unconventional approach to science.
Downright creepy is what it was.
Yeah.
By 1927, Ishii had become a vocal advocate for the development of biological weapons in Japan, leveraging his extensive tour of the West to research biological and chemical warfare. His findings during this period earned him the support of influential military figures, paving the way for his leadership of Unit 731, a secret biological and chemical warfare research and development unit of the Imperial Japanese Army during the Second Sino-Japanese War, 1937 to 1945, and World War II. As head of Unit 731, Ishii oversaw some of the most horrific war crimes committed during the conflict. The unit conducted deadly experiments on thousands of Chinese civilians and prisoners of war. Under Ishii's command, subjects were subjected to vivisections, forced infections with diseases such as plagues and syphilis, and various other brutal experiments. For those that don't know, vivisections are live dissections on both humans and animals. Ishii's work extended to the development of methods for disseminating biological agents via bombs and other means, including plans like Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night to use plague-infected fleas against U.S. cities, plans which were never carried out due to Japan's surrender. Thank God. Following Japan's defeat, Ishii was arrested by U.S. forces but never faced trial. In a controversial decision, the U.S. granted Ishii and his colleagues immunity in exchange for the data they had collected through human experimentation. The U.S. authorities deemed the data obtained from Unit 731's experiments as invaluable for biowarfare research, despite the ethical implications and the atrocities committed. After receiving immunity, Ishii lived quietly, opening a clinic where he provided free medical care, a stark contrast to his wartime activities. He passed away, luckily, on October 9th, 1959, leaving behind a legacy that remains deeply controversial. The atrocities committed under his command at Unit 731 are memorialized at the Unit 731 Museum in Harbin, serving as a grim reminder of the human cost of unrestrained military science.
I believe Harbin is in China. It's not a Japanese city. Which would make sense them memorializing it in a way as a remembrance.
Harbin, China.
Yeah, because the Chinese, unfortunately, were the main.
I'd go there.
They were the main victims of this unit.
Yeah, this Unit 737 or 731 terrifies me.
While there's little or no direct link between Unit 731 and MK Ultra or its official predecessors, the men who served the dark and sinister organization would go on to receive legal immunity from the U.S. government in exchange for intrusion and research materials on a variety of subjects that range from biological and germ warfare to studies on experiments involving human endurance and pain tolerance conducted on unwilling civilians and POWs in the Pacific during World War II. As
we said before at the beginning of this, not officially MK Ultra, no. But this is very much the precursor, very much in influence of where the direction MK Ultra would be heading. So now we get the man himself.
This is Sidney Gottlieb, the poisoner-in-chief. Sidney Gottlieb, born August 3rd, 1918, in the Bronx, to Hungarian Jewish immigrant parents. Fanny, jeez, and Louis Gottlieb. You want to talk about an old New York name, Fanny.
Yeah.
Hey, Fanny! Fanny, get your ass down here! Despite his physical challenges, including a club foot and stuttering, Gottlieb's academic journey was impressive. After attending James Monroe High School, he initially enrolled into City College in New York City before transferring to Arkansas Tech University to focus on botany and organic chemistry and the principles of dairying. His academic prowess led him to the University of Wisconsin, where he graduated magna cum laude in 1940, and then the California Institute of Technology, where he earned a doctorate in biochemistry in 1943. So this man goes from
the Bronx,
City College in New York City, which is not a bad school.
No, it's a good school.
Arkansas Tech, which has a great science program, to University of Wisconsin,
which has a really good, especially Madison, has a very good science program and extremely hard to get into.
And graduating magna cum laude.
Yes.
And then goes to fucking Caltech and gets a doctorate in biochemistry in 1943.
Well, I mean, he's not serving during the war because he got a club foot and is stuttering.
A boy from the Bronx now has studied at 4 of the premier schools in the 40s, and gets a doctorate in biochemistry, which he did nothing with.
Well, actually, yeah.
So Sidney Gottlieb's government career began at the Department of Agriculture and later at the FDA, Food and Drug Administration. However, his path took a significant turn when he joined the CIA in 1951, where he quickly became instrumental in early Cold War-era mind control programs. Gottlieb headed Project MKUltra, the CIA's infamous program, aimed at developing mind control techniques through the administration of drugs like LSD to unwitting subjects, among other methods. These experiments, which often crossed ethical boundaries, were driven by the U.S. government's fear of communist brainwashing techniques, those damn commie satellites. So, under Gottlieb's leadership, MKUltra expanded into a vast series of sub-projects exploring various methods of influence and control over human consciousness, involving numerous unwitting participants. His work also extended to bizarre plots during the Cuban projects, such as attempts to undermine Fidel Castro through non-conventional means like poison cigars and hallucinogenic substances. Fidel Castro, who survived over 600 assassination attempts.
He actually commented to his brother once, he's quoted saying this, that if dodging assassination attempts was an Olympic sport, I would be a gold medalist.
Yeah.
That man was able to... And then, I don't know if you've seen the videos of his escape tunnels.
No.
Oh, this man had hundreds of escape tunnels all throughout Cuba.
I mean,
where literally from his house, you would open a door and it would just drop down and just shoot off in any direction. And I think it was him and like his head of security were the only ones that knew how to get through the tunnels, so that nobody could leak the information. So somebody would go and try and get Fidel Castro to kill him because he was a horrible human being.
Yep.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, he's on the other side of the city within like 5 minutes because he makes it through these tunnels. And he had some food supplies, water, everything he needed, change of clothes. Everything was kept in different parts of those tunnels. There's a documentary on Castro and the tunnels and stuff, and it is...
We need to watch it.
It is insane, the things that he did.
If only he had been a better leader, he wouldn't have needed all those tunnels to run around Havana dodging assassins.
Yeah. Sidney Gottlieb played a central role in some of the CIA's most controversial practices during the Cold War, particularly the administration of LSD to unwitting subjects. His involvement in these activities is most notoriously exemplified in the case of Frank Olson, a biochemist at the Army's Biological Warfare Labs at Fort Detrick. So, MKUltra and LSD experiments. Gottlieb was deeply involved in Project MKUltra, which was approved in 1953, and sought to develop techniques that could be used to control human behavior through various means. including psychological torture and mind-altering substances. LSD was of particular interest because it was powerful and then little understood hallucinogen, which we all obviously know now a lot more about LSD. Gottlieb's fascination with LSD's potential for control led to its extensive testing within the CIA, often on subjects who were not informed they were receiving the drug. This was part of a broader pattern of ethical abuses within MKUltra, where experiments were conducted without the consent of the participants, violating fundamental human rights and ethical standards in research. But CIA has never done that before.
No, never.
And as we're going to see right here, we're going to see the most famous incident of why consent is critical.
Just a little guy, Mr. Olson here. So Frank Olson's involvement with LSD is one of the most tragic episodes linked to Gottlieb's tenure at the CIA. In 1953, he attended a retreat at Deep Creek Lake in Maryland, where CIA officials, including Gottlieb, were present. During this retreat, Olson and several other colleagues were covertly dosed with LSD by Gottlieb. The drug was administered without their knowledge as part of an experiment to observe its effects on unsuspecting subjects. The administration of LSD had severe repercussions for Olson. He suffered a severe psychological reaction that led to acute paranoia and a profound breakdown. Despite being a previously stable and respected scientist, Olson's mental health deteriorated rapidly after the dosing. 9 days after the event, he died after falling from a hotel window in New York City. His death was initially ruled as a suicide, but later investigations and reports suggested that foul play could not be ruled out, and his family contended that he might have been murdered because he was planning to reveal details of CIA interrogation techniques.
Wouldn't surprise me.
It's hard to say. I mean, the LSD definitely played a part.
Oh, yeah.
Did somebody push him out of a window?
He was actually, at the time of his death, surrounded by two men, including a Dr. Abramson, that was all paid for and sponsored by the CIA. So, who knows?
Unless they redact some files, we'll have no idea.
Nope.
Something like this would never have been in a file. It would have just been Gottlieb basically telling somebody, take care of it, and someone just goes, whoop.
So, Gottlieb's involvement in the Olson case and other MKUltra activities left a dark legacy, contributing to the intense scrutiny and criticism the CIA would later face when these activities came to light during the Church Committee hearings of the 1970s. These hearings exposed numerous abuses of CIA power, including projects like MKUltra, which were then curtailed. Gottlieb's role in these experiments, particularly the incident involving Olson, highlights the dangers of unchecked authority in intelligence operation and raises critical questions about the ethics of government-sanctioned research. This part of Gottlieb's career serves as a cautionary tale about the potential human costs of secret governmental research, particularly when it bypasses the ethical standards that are designed to protect individuals against abuse. After retiring from the CIA in 1973, Gottlieb's life took a markedly different turn. He and his wife traveled extensively, including a significant stint running a leper hospital in India, reflecting his complex persona, one part shadowy operative, one part humanitarian. Back in the U.S., he earned a master's degree in speech therapy and worked voluntarily in schools and hospice care, dedicating his later years to helping others overcome speech issues similar to those he had faced. Sidney Gottlieb passed away on March 7, 1999. His involvement with the Olson case his involvement with the Olson case and other MKUltra activities left a dark legacy, contributing to the intense scrutiny and criticism the CIA would later face when these activities came to light during the Church Committee hearings in the 70s. These hearings exposed numerous abuses of CIA power, including projects like MKUltra, which, like we said, were then curtailed.
So, as we've laid out now, here are the people who laid the groundwork for MKUltra. Man, and it's interesting, Sidney Gottlieb, all the persons we've mentioned before him, when we talked about him, he met with these men personally. It's in one way, shape, or form or another. He either, in a couple cases, he recruited them. I believe that was At least one of the German doctors, he personally recruited him from Germany. Others, he either met them in passing or had a heavily direct involvement with them. But as we're going to be diving into MK Ultra in the actual MK Ultra in the next episode. We're basically going down the rabbit hole into a bizarro world of just any kind of CIA experiment that there was and possibly still are going on, and you'll kind of just get the full scope of this madness, because that's really all what we're dealing with here is just madness, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah. So, we've got another 3 parts of MK Ultra that we're gonna be putting out. And then we're gonna have some fun stuff after that. But
you would make me have to research a certain cult.
Yeah, so we haven't done a cult yet this season, so we're gonna do some cult stuff. So, but yeah, so we want to remind you that we do have our new YouTube channel, Scarlet Tavern. Please go like, subscribe, share the videos, everything like that. And
if you have any topic ideas for us to cover, you can email us at scarlet.tavern.podcast@gmail.com.
Yes. So we want to thank you for visiting the Scarlet Tavern. Remember to turn in your glasses, push in your seat, and as always, tip the bard. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.